Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Shay. Welcome back if you are a returning subscriber. I make mom content as well as lifestyle content, but today I'm doing something a little bit differently, okay? This is my very first Bible study video. I have been wanting to do this for the past 3 years, and I finally found the courage. This year, my goal is to read the Bible front to back and to really understand God for myself and better my Christian walk in my daily life. So if that is something that you are interested in, please turn on your notifications, hit the subscribe button, because if the Lord says the same, we will be here every Wednesday studying the Bible and seeing how we can apply it to our everyday lives. In today's video, we'll be talking about 5 signs that you may experience right before God blesses you. These signs are signs of preparation, but they may sometimes seem like punishment, okay? But I want you to know that in reality, God is always working. In Genesis chapter 39, verse 3, it says, "The Lord was with him. The Lord gave him success in everything he did." In this video, we will be using the story of Jacob to understand how God works in our lives. Sign number 1, God will give you a dream. He'll give you a vision that only you will understand. Only you can fulfill. So when Joseph pops up on the scene, Joseph is 17. He's the youngest, and he is also favored by his dad due to his dad having him at such an older age. Joseph is a dreamer. Joseph is the first one that's like, you know what? I can no longer stay in this place that I was born. My purpose is much bigger than this, okay? So a lot of us may experience that where we have grown up in either a smaller town or we have grown up in a toxic household, grown up in situations that have played its part, but it is now time for us to go and fulfill our purpose and our dream that God has only given us, okay? So when you do have these types of dreams or this vision, only you will be able to understand. Let's look at chapter 37, verses 5 through 7, and we're going to also skip down to verse 19. So Joseph in these verses began to explain his dream to his brothers, and his brothers hated him even the more. They began to ask questions. They were like, "You're going to reign over us, and how are you going to do this, and what you did, like how you're going to do these things." Same as to our everyday life. When you have a calling over your life, right? When you know that there is something that you have to fulfill, there is a dream or vision that God has given you, and you begin to share it with family members or you begin to share it with friends, and you're not too fond of the responses that they have given you because they don't understand the blessing that God has for you. They don't understand the dream that God has blessed you with. It's important that we stay the course and know that God is always with us. So number 2, you will experience betrayal. His brothers began to mock him, quote unquote, "Here comes that dreamer," right? So a lot of people are not going to understand how some family members, such as Joseph's brothers and his dad, didn't really understand his dreams. During these times, as we go through these signs, you will see that sometimes they may feel like it's impossible. You yourself may not really understand exactly what God has given you or is about to give you, but you just know that it's something different, right? We all have been there where it's like you got this very bright idea, and in this idea, it just seems like it's the one. Like you have had so many ideas, but it's like this one, you just keep working hard at it. You may have failed a few times, but you see yourself always going back to that one thing. That's the dream and the vision that God has given to you. And although it may not happen overnight, just as it didn't for Joseph, because when Joseph popped up on the scene, he was 17, but he didn't become a ruler of Egypt until he was 30. So it took Joseph almost 20 years really to reap the benefits and the blessings of the dreams that God had blessed him years, a decade or 2 ago. Experience a betrayal of some sort, whether it's from your job, whether it's from your friendships, whether it's from your relationships. You may be going through a divorce, you may be going through a breakup, you may be having problems with your child, whatever the case may be, you will experience some sort of betrayal. And we see this in chapter 37 verse 20, where Joseph's brothers were planning to kill him, but they eventually just ended up selling him off, right? And this is going to make a point to what others meant for evil, God meant for good. And Joseph says that to them. Chapter 45, he says, "So then it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me the father of Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all of Egypt." Okay, so what his brothers meant for evil, and sometimes when you experience betrayal, those people, those corporations, those persons are meant to hurt you because they don't understand the assignment that God has over your life. But you have to be mindful that this is all a part of God's plan. The enemy works just as God works, but God works harder. Which brings me to sign number 3. You may experience some sense of temptation. So you are at a point in your life where things are starting to kind of go good. You know, you've been through a few things, but you've made it on the other side. You came out on top, right? So at this point in his life, after Joseph had been sold off to slavery in Egypt, he still saw favor in God's eyes because, one, he was already on assignment. We talked about how in the end, he said it was God who sent me here. It wasn't you guys, it was God. So God had a plan for me all along. So now that you're at the next phase in your life, you're going to run into some form of temptation. So Joseph was a servant at this time, but he was a head servant. Right? So we'll see chapter 39, verse 1. It says, now that Joseph was taken down to Egypt, the Lord was with him, so he prospered in everything that he did. When the master saw that the Lord was with him, the Lord gave him success in everything that he did. Joseph found favor in the eyes of his attendants. So Joseph at this time had become head servant. He's living a pretty good life, you know. He hasn't gotten all the way to his blessing yet, but he's good. He's content. He's growing. He's become handsome. You know, his attendant, he trusts him. And then here comes that temptation. So the attendant who made Joseph the head servant of the house, his wife tried to sleep with Joseph. And we'll see this in verse 8. It says, now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he entrusted it with me. Okay? So there goes that temptation. But guess what Joseph did? He stayed loyal. He stayed obedient. The saying that obedience is better than sacrifice, as in sacrificing that flesh. But there's going to be something along the line when everything is going good, right before you get to that breakthrough, right before you get to that vision that God had given you, that blessing, you are going to face temptation just as Joseph did. Right? Chapter 39, verse 15, she states that Joseph tried to sleep with her. So Joseph is then thrown into prison because Joseph finds favor in the Lord, which we will see in verse 21. God is with Joseph again. He says, but while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge, once again, of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Once again, what others meant for evil, God meant for good. Although Joseph was still in these situations that wasn't his ideal situation, God still showed favor to Joseph. So when you are on the path, completing your assignment, and you'll run into trouble, trials, tribulations, different things that God want to show you to, one, test your faith and to build endurance. And this is all that was going on with Joseph. This was preparing Joseph emotionally, spiritually, mentally for the responsibilities that he will have with the blessing that God has for him. As Joseph is in prison, there are two other guys that come into prison, and the guys ask Joseph, and you can see this also in chapter 40, verses 1 through 23. You will see that there is a cupbearer and a baker who goes into prison, and Joseph interprets a dream for them. He tells the cupbearer, he's like, don't forget about me. When you go back out there, tell Pharaoh so that I can get out of prison. But we'll see in chapter 40, verse 23, chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot about him. Which brings me to point number 4. You're going to feel overlooked. You're going to feel forgotten about. A lot of people are going to forget about you. And then verse 41, it says, when 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. So you mean to tell me 2 years had gone by. So Joseph was already in prison for some time. Another 2 years had gone by. But the 5th sign is that it may seem like your time waiting is excruciating. It may have seemed like it's like endless. It just seems as if God has forgotten about you because you have been waiting for so long. Keep the faith because it'll be well worth it. At this point, he's still an innocent man sitting in prison waiting for his next move, or he's waiting for that promised blessing that God had given him through his dream. 41. But Pharaoh has a dream. So Pharaoh is the king of Egypt at this time. So Pharaoh calls for all of the magicians and all of the wise men to come and interpret his dream because he was very disturbed by the dream. So then that cupbearer that forgot about him 2 years ago was the one that said, oh, that just reminded me I actually know a guy who can do it. He's in prison. So Pharaoh calls Joseph over and Joseph interprets his dream. But once again, he said, it's not I that knows these interpretations, for it is the Lord. Okay. So as we are on these journeys, as we're elevating in life, we have to remember to keep God first. Okay. So then Joseph goes on to interpret the dream for Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says in chapter 41, verse 38. So Pharaoh asked him, can we find anyone like this man, one whom is the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So at this point, Joseph has become second in command to the king of Egypt. Tell me that ain't God. Joseph may have had to wait years and years and years, similar to your situation. It may feel as if you have lost everything, that you have lost friendships, that you have lost money, that you have lost time, and that you have just been in this season of waiting and being still, and it just seems like God still doesn't hear you or see you. But just as Joseph did, we must continue to have faith, and we must continue to make sure that it is not us, but it is all in God's plan. God's plan. God's plan, okay? So once we really trust in God's plan, our purpose and our dream in life becomes so much bigger. It becomes so much bigger and so much more rewarding. So as you journey through trying to complete the assignment in your life and achieving dreams, goals, everyone is not going to understand. You're going to experience preparation along the way. The preparation may feel like punishment, but just know that God is always working. Keep the faith and watch how he works. Okay, guys, this is all that I wanted to talk about. But I highly encourage you to go and read the book of Genesis for yourself. I just finished the book of Genesis. Joseph's story starts at, I think, Genesis chapter 37 all the way to chapter 50. It's a very good lesson because farther on the reading, you will see that what Joseph dreamed about in the very beginning was actually came to pass. The land of Egypt had gone through a really bad famine, which is the dream that he interpreted for Pharaoh. And because he interpreted that dream, he was able to put aside so much, about 20% of everything that they had, to be able to feed the people during the famine. And his family, his brothers, his dad were also affected by the famine. And because they were affected by the famine, they had to come to Joseph, bow down to him as what his dream had shown him in the beginning. And he didn't have to do nothing. He didn't have to say anything. It just all played out how it played out. So as you begin, or as you are continuing to walk through your journey and accomplish the things that God has for you, just know that everyone that was last shall be first, and all the first shall be last. Okay, your time is coming. Stay the course, stay the race. And I pray that this message really resonated with you, and that you feel encouraged, and that you feel like you can continue on throughout your journey, knowing that God will make a way, and that in the end you will be rewarded. Thank you guys for being here. Again, if this is something that you really enjoyed, please let me know below. And a question that I want to ask you guys, let me know in the comments. Which of these signs do you feel like you have gone through in order to get to your purpose or to accomplish your dream? What do you feel like you are going through now that God is trying to show you while you are on the journey? Thank you again for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.